There we go.
Mr. Harper talks about this election being about the economy. Would you please tell all Canadians what constitutes the economy? What are the basic elements in the Canadian economy? What policies affect the Canadian economy, especially in this election?
Okay, that's actually a very good question, and let me answer it with just a specific example. Mr. Harper says the way to get this economy going is to cut corporate tax for companies that are making a huge amount of money already. We just had a question about gas prices. The oil companies are doing just fine. Oil is going way up and they're doing terrific. Our vision of how you sustain the economy is to stand up for the ordinary middle-class Canadian family. If you sustain the standard of living, the Canadian middle-class family, everything else is going to be just fine. Because you're the folks who purchase the goods and services. You're the people who get up and do the work every day. And we have to stand by your standard of living. But let me give you a specific example of this, because sometimes people think, oh, those liberals are going to spend all that money on those social programs, right? Let's think anew. Let's get a new idea about social programs. Just take the one example of childcare. Early learning and childcare. About 6 weeks ago, I was in a place talking to a woman who wanted to qualify as a heavy machine operator. And she said, I just got my ticket to qualify as a heavy machine operator and I'm feeling great because I've been on social assistance for 2 years. I've been costing the taxpayer because I got 2 kids at home. And now I get the chance to become a heavy machine operator, get into the economy, make my contribution to the economy. And you know what my problem is? I can't get childcare for love or money. So a liberal thinks, okay, that's not a social problem, that's an economic problem. What I want is to get that woman into the labor force operating a crane. And I want to make sure her kids get great early learning and childcare so they get out of social assistance, they get a good start, they start to get the basis of a good education. You see, you can't separate the social stuff from the economy. If you want an economy to really hum, it's got to be based on one word, one phrase, equality of opportunity for all. That's the liberal vision of the economy. That's why we do this stuff. That's why early learning and childcare matters. It's not a social problem. It's not a social program. It's absolutely crucial to make our economy hum. And we've got to make some decisions here on the 2nd of May. You can either give more and more gifts to the big, profitable corporations, or you can stand up for the middle-class family and figure out what they need in order to be economically successful. And we have made our choice. There's the next question. There you are, sir.
Hello, future Prime Minister.
Oh, I like the sound of that. That was good. You can do that again. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
As a Prime Minister, are you willing to apologize for Kamagata Maru in the House of Commons?
Let's explain what that's about, because this is known to many of you, but not to everyone. Kamagata Maru was a ship that was carrying British Empire citizens, many of them of Sikh origin. It anchored in the harbor in Vancouver, and it wasn't allowed to land. It was a terrible thing. These were people who had the right to land in Canada because they were citizens of the British Empire. And we, at that time, we were citizens of the British Empire too. There was no reason why they were kept on that ship. They were kept on that ship in terrible conditions for month after month after month. This was before the First World War. And then they were sent back, and eventually some of them were killed. And it's a matter of shame to Canadians. It's something that should never have happened. And when I go to English Bay in Vancouver, I always think of Kamagata Maru. And when I taught history 30 years ago, yeah, I'm that old, 30 years ago at the University of British Columbia, I taught the Kamagata Maru incident every semester of my class because I wanted Canadians to understand what had happened. So I think the point here is that we're proud Canadians. We're proud of our past. But we have to acknowledge all of it. We have to acknowledge all of it. We can't pick and choose the bits we like and the bits we wish we could forget. One of the ways that we want to be at peace with ourselves as a country is to accept all the parts of our past. And one of them that was very bad was Kamagata Maru. So the answer to the question is yes, an apology in Parliament would be appropriate.
Hi, okay, so I want to ask you, what do you say towards meeting families, not immigration, just visitor visas? What do you say towards meeting families over special occasions, just for the fact of meeting them, just meeting them, nothing special? What do you say towards that? Because lots of people have been refused, and lots of people can't get through.
Yeah. Well, that's an issue that if you're a member of Parliament, especially a Liberal member of Parliament in Canada, you're constantly trying to help families. Gurbak's Mali does it, Bonnie does it, Nab does it, Ruby does it, Omar does it, and we're always trying to help families get visas for special occasions like a marriage or a sadder occasion like a funeral. And it goes back to this business about family reunification. One of the things that angers Canadians who are citizens of this country is they can't get their loved ones over for a happy occasion or a sad one. And we have just got to understand that this, in my view, ought to be a right of citizenship. You ought to bring your loved ones over for a happy occasion, and it shouldn't be taken months and months and months, and you shouldn't be turned down at the last moment. Gurbak's is constantly dealing with this on a Friday. He does all these campaign surgeries on a Friday where people are coming desperate. The wedding's on Thursday, right? And Gurbak's has to try and fix it. Well, we have got to do better. I can't wave a magic wand over this. We've got to simplify the bureaucracy. We've also got to have more confidence in Canadians. One of the reasons we make it so difficult is we think all kinds of people are going to come in and, everything's going to go wrong. We've got to have confidence in citizens. We can ask them to make sure that they follow the rules. If they follow the rules, we should make it much easier. Because this is about the equality of our citizenship. And you're not an equal citizen if you can't even have your loved ones over for a wedding or a funeral. Thank you for the question. Well, the next question, where's that coming from? Oh, sir. No, wait a minute. Oh, sir. Who is... There we go.
Thank you, Miss. Thank you. I have a question. Do you want me to hold that? Okay. I have a question, and the question is this. In the region of Peel, there are 167,000 people that live below the poverty line. Where I want to go with that, though, is that 11,000 of those are made up of the homeless that go through the shelter system. 3,400 of those are children. Along with that, there's 250,000 to 500,000 homeless in Canada, and a lot of those are still on the street. I really want to know what you're going to do as the next Prime Minister of Canada to address what the Parliamentary Research Branch has called a national disaster, the homelessness a national disaster. I'm really concerned. I think you can do it. Tell me what you're going to do to alleviate homelessness and a national housing strategy.
Thank you. Sometimes when someone cites those statistics like that, you absolutely know absolutely what you're talking about, and I have a feeling you have deep experience with this issue, and I thank you for all the experience that you brought to the meeting. We want to do two things. We have in this platform, you will see, and it's free for inspection, and I hope you'll check it out to make sure I'm telling you the God's truth. We have a specific commitment towards affordable housing. The federal government of Canada has to get back into the affordable housing business. And it's not just for the homeless, let's be clear. There are a lot of working families who cannot find affordable rental housing. There are a lot of seniors who can't find affordable rental housing. We have to work with the provinces, we have to work with the municipal authorities, we have to work with the developers, we have to work with Canada Mortgage and Housing to find a way to unleash a stream of affordable rental housing. So that's number one, and then we have to work with all the agencies who work on homelessness. Homelessness is not just a problem about shelter, it's also a problem about addictions, it's also a problem about mental illness, and we don't have a national strategy on mental illness. And we got a lot of people out there struggling, and And this brings up healthcare. One of the reasons we've got mental health problems and no national strategy is we have no approach to the business of mental illness and the issue of medications. People go off their meds and then they have problems and then they get homeless and down we spiral. So that's one thing. The other thing we have to do is we have to have a national anti-poverty strategy. We must have it. And we have committed in the platform. And sometimes my answers go on too long, but it's because the question is so important and I don't want you to think I'm trying to fob you off just with words. A national anti-poverty strategy means we have to look at all the income support systems in our country to make sure that they're working, to make sure that they create incentives to people to get out of welfare and get into jobs. That little example I told you 10 minutes ago about the woman who was on social assistance, her problem is that she had qualifications but she couldn't get childcare. That's part of an anti-poverty strategy, to make sure that people have the social supports they need so they can get back into the workplace. So that's part of what I mean by a national anti-poverty strategy, but it has to involve a national commitment on affordable housing. So I thank you for the question. Who's holding the microphone here? Okay. You got a microphone? There we go. Okay.
Hello.
There and then back there.
In light of the financial difficulties which have taken place in Europe over the past years, and also considering the financial malaise which is taking place in the United States, which is affecting their financial security, what can you say that a Liberal Party will do to slay the deficit and get rid of our debt long term?
Thank you for the question. I think, and this is very important, someone was asking, I think you, sir, in the hat, who asked me the great question about gas prices, you were asking a question about the inflation. This is relevant to the answer. A lot of prices are going up, and it's tough for everybody. One of the things that we're all worried about is what happens when interest rates begin to rise. And then suddenly we got a $45 billion deficit. Folks, I did not dig you into that hole, but I'm going to have to dig you out. And the thing that worries me, I'll be candid with you, is what happens if interest rates start to spike. Because that then means that, so much of our government spending will be just paying the banks down on increased interest charges. So we have got to have a serious deficit reduction strategy, and we've committed in our platform to get our deficit down to 1% of GDP within 2 years. And then we have to keep grinding it down. That means I can't be all things to all people. I can promise you the family pack, the 5 policies I've outlined. I've told you how we're going to pay for it. I've told you we can do some affordable housing, but I can't. I've got to keep tight control of the purse. And the thing about Mr. Harper has an $11 billion hole in his platform. He's got absolutely no idea of how he's going to sustain health care, how he's going to buy $30 billion worth of jets. That's $1,000 for every man, woman, and child in the country on those jets. It's crazy stuff if you're worried about a deficit. It's crazy way to run an economy if you want to sustain healthcare spending at 6%, which I have firmly committed to. We've got, the point about a deficit is this is the moment where we have to choose. We have to be clear what our priorities are. And our priorities are the needs, the absolute requirements of the middle-class Canadian family to sustain their standard of living. Jets, jails, corporate tax giveaways, no. Yes to the middle-class family. And that... There you go.
My name is Marty Conter-Taylor, and my question is on healthcare. The Liberal Party is continuously talking about the healthcare, and something that is extremely dear to my heart. I have been practicing alternative healthcare, and I'm just wondering if the Liberal Party would be willing to take on Big Pharma in order to have alternative availability nationwide in hospitals, and instead of me having to pay out of my pocket, I would be able to use my OHIP.
This is, let's figure out what our goals here in healthcare. Let me go at it that way. One of the things I think we have to understand about healthcare is our goal here is so simple that we often forget to say it. Our goal is more health, not more healthcare, right? Our goal here is to make Canadians healthier. That means better diet, less fat, less sugar, less salt in our diet. It means more Canadian food on Canadian plates. How about that? That's a good idea. It means embracing all those forms of diet, exercise, extra new forms of therapy and treatment that make people healthier. Yes, sir. We got to expand our vision of that. But let's be real clear where we are here. We've got a healthcare system that is very expensive. I can commit to increase funding for it by 6%. That's what Paul Martin committed to in 2004, and I've committed to run it past 2014. I've got to get reform in the system. We've got to work with the provinces. Every time I go into a meeting, someone says, can we get our glasses? Can we get our dental? Can we get something else added to the basic package of medically necessary services? And I want to be honest with every Canadian. We've got to reform this system. We've got to get the best value out of it. I can't make empty promises. For one reason, I don't deliver healthcare. The provinces deliver healthcare. That's why I want to have this first ministers meeting when we get into office within 60 days. And this is the kind of thing we're going to talk about. Not merely how we finance the system, but what medically necessary services can be charged on OHIP or other provincial systems. And we've got to have a kind of national standard here. Not national standard, that isn't the right word, because provinces we got to have roughly comparable services. Because here's the thing about healthcare, which we all need to understand. We fought for 60 years so it doesn't depend on your wallet, right? And we're proud of that. But we don't want to have a healthcare system where your access to healthcare depends on your postal code. People don't talk about that enough. There are big inequalities of healthcare between rural and urban, northern and southern, between different provinces. And I want us to be equal as a country, equal access to medically necessary services across the country. And that's what you have a federal government for. C'est pour ça qu'on a un gouvernement fédéral pour garantir l'égalité de l'accès aux services médicaux nécessaires à travers le Canada, pour qu'il y ait de la portabilité, pour qu'on ait accès à des services comparables à travers le pays. C'est ça le rôle du fédéral, pas d'ingérer, pas de gérer le système, mais de travailler avec les provinces. I just spoke a lot of French. And that's because we're one country. We're one country.